Hello, and welcome back to our weekly podcast, Sarah. I'm really excited about today's topic because it's something we get asked about constantly in our inbox. Every day, someone writes to us asking, Mark, Sarah, how can I learn English faster? Is there a secret shortcut?
You're right, Mark. It's the million-dollar question. Everyone wants to reach fluency, but many learners feel like they are stuck on a plateau. They study for years, they know the grammar rules, but when they try to speak, they freeze up. Today, I want us to dive deep into the methods that actually work, not just the ones that look good in a textbook.
I think the first thing we should address is the mindset. Many people think of English as a subject to study, like history or chemistry. But it isn't just a subject, it's a tool for communication. If you only look at grammar books, you're looking at the blueprint of a house, but you aren't living in it. You have to move into the house to understand it.
That's a perfect metaphor. And moving into the house means immersion. People often tell me, Sarah, I can't immerse myself because I don't live in London or New York. But we live in the digital age. You can change your phone's language to English, listen to English podcasts while you're doing the dishes, and watch Netflix with English subtitles. It's about surrounding yourself with the sounds of the language until they become familiar.
I completely agree about the subtitles, by the way. But there is a trick to it, isn't there? I always recommend that intermediate learners turn off the subtitles in their native language and use English subtitles instead. If you read in your own language while listening to English, your brain just ignores the English audio. It takes the easy way out.
Exactly. Your brain is lazy by nature. It wants to conserve energy. When you use English subtitles, you are connecting the written word to the spoken sound. This is huge for improving your listening comprehension skills. But let's talk about speaking, Mark. That's where most people struggle. They are terrified of making mistakes.
Oh, the fear of mistakes is the biggest wall. I always tell students that mistakes are the evidence of progress. If you aren't making mistakes, you aren't pushing yourself. I remember when I was learning Spanish, I once told a waiter I was pregnant instead of embarrassed because the words sounded similar. We both laughed, and I never forgot that word again. Humor is a great teacher.
That's hilarious. And it's true, those awkward moments are the ones that stick in your memory. Another thing that helps with speaking is the shadowing technique. Have you ever tried that? It's when you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat exactly what they say, almost at the same time. You copy their rhythm, their intonation, and their speed. It's like training your mouth muscles to move in a new way.
Shadowing is brilliant because it stops you from translating in your head. Translation is the enemy of fluency. When you translate from your native language to English, there's a delay in your brain. You become a slow speaker. To speak fast, you need to think in English. And to think in English, you need to learn phrases, not just individual words.
That's a vital point, Mark. In linguistics, we call those lexical chunks. Instead of learning the word decision, learn the phrase make a decision. Instead of learning interested, learn I'm interested in. If you learn the whole chunk, your brain doesn't have to work as hard to build a sentence. It's like having pre-built Lego blocks instead of trying to mold each brick yourself.
And speaking of vocabulary, what do you think about the forgetting curve? I notice many students learn 20 new words on Monday, and by Friday, they only remember 2. It's so discouraging for them.
It is discouraging, but it's totally normal. To combat the forgetting curve, we need spaced repetition. You shouldn't just study a word once. You need to see it today, then tomorrow, then in 4 days, then in a week. There are great apps like Anki or Quizlet that use algorithms to show you words right before you're about to forget them. It's like hacking your own brain.
I love that idea. But let's be honest, Sarah. Consistency is the hardest part. People start with a lot of energy, they study for 3 hours on Sunday, and then they don't touch their books for the rest of the week.
You hit the nail on the head. 10 minutes of English every single day is much better than 3 hours once a week. You have to build a habit. It's like going to the gym. You don't get fit by working out for 10 hours once a month. You get fit by showing up every day, even when you don't feel like it.
So, what's a small habit someone can start today? Maybe writing a diary?
A one-sentence diary is a great start. Just write one thing you did today in English. Today, I went to the park and saw a very fat squirrel. It's simple, it's personal, and it forces you to look up words that are relevant to your own life. Because why learn words about nuclear physics if you want to talk about squirrels in parks?
Exactly. Relevance is key. If you love cooking, read recipes in English. If you love football, watch the match with English commentary. Your hobbies are the best bridge to a new language. You forget that you're studying and you just enjoy the content.
Before we wrap up this part of the conversation, I also want to mention the importance of a speaking partner. You can't learn to swim by reading a book about water. You have to get in the pool. There are so many websites now where you can find language exchange partners for free. You teach them your language, and they help you with English.
And if you're too shy for that, you can even talk to yourself. I know it sounds crazy, but narrating your day, saying, now I'm making coffee, now I'm looking for my keys, helps build that bridge between thought and speech.
It really does. It's all about building confidence. English isn't a mountain you climb once and you're done. It's a journey, and you have to enjoy the scenery along the way. Don't focus so much on the end goal that you forget to celebrate the small wins, like finally understanding a joke or finishing a short story.
That's a great place to stop for now. Remember, everyone, be patient with yourself. You didn't learn your first language in a month, so give yourself time with your second.
Absolutely. Keep practicing, stay curious, and most importantly, have fun with it.
That's so true, Sarah. Celebrating small wins is what keeps the motivation alive. But you know, Sarah, as students move from the beginner stage to the intermediate level, they start noticing their mistakes more, and that can be a bit overwhelming. They start worrying about things like articles or prepositions. Why is it in the morning but at night? It drives them crazy.
Prepositions are the nightmare of every English learner. But here's the thing, you don't learn those by memorizing a giant list. You learn them through exposure. The more you hear at night, the more in night will start to sound wrong to your ears. It's about developing an intuition. Mark, what do you think is the biggest grammatical mistake that intermediate learners make?
I'd say it's the tense confusion, especially between the present perfect and the past simple. Many students say things like, I have gone to the cinema yesterday. They don't realize that yesterday is a finished time, so they must use the past simple. It's a classic mistake because in many other languages, the structure is different.
That's a great example, and the best way to fix that isn't just doing grammar exercises in a workbook. It's about storytelling. When you tell a story about your life, you naturally switch between these tenses. I often suggest that learners record themselves telling a 5-minute story about their last vacation. When they listen back, they often catch their own mistakes. It's like being your own teacher.
Speaking of being your own teacher, many of our listeners are actually preparing for formal exams like IELTS or TOEFL. For them, the pressure is even higher. They don't just want to speak English, they need a specific score to move to another country or get a better job.
Exam preparation is a completely different beast. For exams, you need academic English. You can't just say, things are getting better. You should say, there is a significant improvement in the situation. It's about expanding your vocabulary from basic to sophisticated.
Right, and let's talk about the writing section of those exams. That's usually the lowest score for most students. They often write exactly how they speak, which is too informal. I always tell them to read high-quality journalism like The Economist or The Guardian, not because they need to agree with the news, but because they need to see how professional writers structure their arguments and use linking words like furthermore, nevertheless, and consequently.
Those linking words are like the glue that holds a paragraph together. Without them, your writing feels like a list of random sentences. But we should also warn people, don't overdo it. Some students put however and moreover in every single sentence, and it sounds like a robot wrote it.
I've seen those essays. It's like they swallowed a dictionary. Speaking of dictionaries, Sarah, do you prefer a bilingual dictionary or an English-to-English one for this level?
Definitely English to English. By the time you're at an intermediate level, you should stop translating. An English dictionary helps you learn how to describe a word when you forget it. If you forget the word carpenter, you can say the person who makes things out of wood. That is a vital survival skill in a real conversation.
That's called circumlocution. It's a fancy word for talking around a word you don't know. It's what native speakers do too. I forget words in English all the time, and I just describe them. It keeps the flow of the conversation going.
Exactly. Another thing that helps with exams and just general fluency is collocations. These are words that naturally go together. For example, we say fast food, but we say a quick shower. We don't say quick food or a fast shower. If you use the wrong combination, people will still understand you, but you won't sound natural.
That's why reading is so powerful. When you read, you see these collocations in their natural habitat. You don't have to study them, you just absorb them. But many people find reading boring. What do you suggest for them?
Graded readers are the answer. They are books written specifically for your level. If you try to read Shakespeare or a complex modern novel too early, you'll get frustrated and quit. But if you read a story where you know 90% of the words, you can guess the other 10% from the context. That's where the real learning happens.
I also want to touch on the listening part of exams. The biggest complaint I hear is they speak too fast.
Well, the world speaks fast, Mark. But seriously, the problem usually isn't the speed, it's the connected speech. In English, we don't say, "What are you going to do?" We say, "What you gonna do?" The words blend together. If you aren't familiar with these contractions and reductions, you'll feel lost.
That's why watching movies and TV shows is so helpful, even if you don't understand every word. You're training your ear to recognize those patterns. I always tell my students to watch sitcoms because the language is very conversational and repetitive. Shows like Friends or The Office are great because the situations are relatable.
And don't be afraid to use technology. There are AI tools now where you can practice speaking and get instant feedback on your pronunciation. It's not a replacement for a human, but it's a fantastic way to get more output time.
Output is the key word. Most learners spend 90% of their time on input, reading and listening, and only 10% on output, speaking and writing. To get better, you need to flip that ratio, or at least make it 50-50.
I agree. You have to be an active participant in the language, not just a passive observer. Whether you're writing a comment on a YouTube video, joining an online forum for your favorite hobby, or just talking to your dog in English, you have to use it or you'll lose it.
You know, Sarah, while we were talking about watching sitcoms and movies, a lot of my students ask me a very common question. Mark, should I learn American English or British English? They seem really worried that if they learn one, they won't understand the other.
That's such a classic concern. I always tell them, don't sweat it. At the end of the day, English is English. The core grammar is about 95% the same. Of course, there are some vocabulary differences, like elevator in the US versus lift in the UK, or apartment versus flat, but those won't stop you from communicating. The real challenge for most learners isn't the vocabulary, it's the accent.
I agree. Some regional accents can be quite thick. If you've only ever heard the standard American accent on news channels, and then you go to a small village in Scotland or a deep South city in the US, you might feel like you're listening to a completely different language. But that's actually the beauty of English. It's a global language with so many flavors.
Flavors. I like that word. It's like coffee. It's all coffee, but it tastes different depending on where it's from. For our intermediate listeners, I think it's important to expose yourself to a variety of accents. Don't just listen to one person. Listen to Australians, Canadians, Irish people, and even non-native speakers from India or Germany. In the professional world, you'll likely be talking to people from all over the globe.
That's a vital point. Actually, statistics show that there are more non-native English speakers in the world than native speakers. So the chances of you speaking to someone who also learned English as a second language are very high.
This brings us to another interesting topic, slang and idioms. Students love them, but they can be dangerous, right?
Oh, definitely. I've seen students try to use very modern slang that they heard in a rap song during a formal job interview. That's a huge no-no. Slang is like salt. Use a little bit to make your speech more natural, but don't dump the whole bottle into the conversation. You need to understand the register.
Register is a great term for our listeners to learn. It basically means the level of formality. You wouldn't say, "Yo, what's up, boss," to the CEO of a company. You'd say, "Good morning." But with your friends, saying, "How do you do," makes you sound like you've traveled here from the year 1850.
Precisely. It's all about context. If you want to sound more natural without using too much slang, I recommend focusing on phrasal verbs. These are verbs like get up, look after, or run out of. Native speakers use them constantly. Instead of saying, I need to investigate this problem, a native speaker will almost always say, I need to look into this problem.
Phrasal verbs are the bread and butter of conversational English. They can be tricky because look means one thing, but look up to someone means you admire them. It's a completely different meaning. My advice is to learn them in groups. For example, learn all the turn verbs together. Turn on, turn off, turn up, turn down, turn around. It helps your brain categorize them.
That's a smart way to study. Now, let's pivot a little bit and talk about the future of language learning. We're living in a time where artificial intelligence, AI, is everywhere. How do you think tools like ChatGPT or voice assistants are changing the game for students?
It's a revolution, Sarah. In the past, if you didn't have a teacher, you couldn't get your writing corrected. Now, you can paste your essay into an AI tool and ask, "Can you make this sound more professional?" Or, "Can you explain why this sentence is wrong?" It's like having a tutor in your pocket 24/7.
It really is. I've even seen people using AI to practice role playing. You can tell the AI, act like a grumpy waiter at a restaurant and let me practice ordering food. It's a safe, low-pressure environment to practice. You don't have to feel self-conscious because the computer isn't going to judge you.
Self-conscious, that's a feeling many of our listeners know well. It's that feeling of being shy or embarrassed because you think people are watching your every mistake. Technology can help build that initial confidence, but I have to add a warning. Don't let the AI do all the work for you. If the AI writes your emails and your essays, your brain isn't learning anything. You're just a copy-paster.
Exactly. You have to use it as a tool, not a crutch. Use it to check your work, but do the work yourself first. It's the struggle of trying to remember a word or a rule that actually builds the neural pathways in your brain.
We should also mention the overwhelming amount of resources available now. Sometimes having too many choices is just as bad as having none. Students spend hours looking for the perfect app or the perfect YouTube channel instead of just studying.
We call that analysis paralysis. You're so busy analyzing your options that you become paralyzed and do nothing. My advice, pick one good textbook, one good podcast, like ours, and one speaking practice method. Stick with them for 3 months. Consistency beats variety every time.
I couldn't agree more. And don't forget the physical side of the language. Sometimes if you're feeling stuck, you just need to change your environment. Take your book to a park or listen to your audio lessons while you're hiking. The movement and fresh air can actually help your brain process information better.
That's a tip I use myself when I'm trying to learn a new skill. It breaks the monotony. Well, Mark, we've talked about accents, slang, AI, and the psychology of learning today. I think our listeners have a lot to think about.
We're just getting started. There is still so much to cover, like how to improve your pronunciation and how to expand your vocabulary through movies. But let's take a little breather first. You're right, Sarah, a breather is always good, but I'm too fired up to stop now. We've talked a lot about the mental and digital side of learning, but we haven't touched much on the physical mechanics of the language. I'm talking about pronunciation. A lot of intermediate students have great grammar, but they feel like people can't understand them because of their accent.
That's a sensitive topic for many. First, I want to say to everyone listening, having an accent is a sign that you speak more than one language. It's a badge of honor. You don't need to sound like a BBC newsreader to be good at English. However, clarity is important. If your pronunciation of certain sounds is too far off, it creates a communication breakdown.
Exactly. It's about being understood, not being perfect. One thing I've noticed is that many learners struggle with the word stress. In English, if you stress the wrong syllable, the word can sound like something else entirely. For example, percent versus present. One is a gift and the other is showing something to an audience.
And don't get me started on the schwa sound, the sound. It's the most common sound in the English language, and yet it's the one most students ignore. It's that lazy sound in words like teacher or banana. If you try to pronounce every single letter in an English word exactly as it's written, you'll sound very robotic and unnatural.
That's because English isn't a phonetic language. It's not like Spanish or Italian where you say every letter. English is a stress-timed language. This means some syllables are long and clear, and others are squashed and short. Mastering that rhythm is actually more important for being understood than getting every single th sound perfect.
I love that, the rhythm of the language. To practice this, I always suggest minimal pairs. These are pairs of words that differ by only one sound, like ship and sheep, or bat and bet. Practicing these helps your brain distinguish between sounds that might not exist in your native language.
It's like musical training for your ears. But Sarah, let's talk about the anxiety part. I've met students who know all of this. They know the grammar, the rhythm, the vocabulary, but the moment they have to speak to a real human, their mind goes blank, their heart starts racing, and they forget everything.
That's performance anxiety, and it's completely real. It happens because we are social creatures. We don't want to look stupid or inferior in front of others. My best advice for this is exposure therapy. Start small. Don't try to give a speech to 100 people. Start by ordering a coffee in English or asking a librarian a simple question.
I also find that visualization helps. Before an important meeting or a conversation, spend 5 minutes imagining yourself speaking clearly and confidently. It sounds a bit new agey, but athletes use this technique all the time. If you see yourself succeeding in your mind, your body is less likely to panic when the real moment arrives.
Another trick is to accept the silence. When a learner forgets a word, they often panic and start saying, which makes them more nervous. It's okay to pause. A 3-second pause feels like an hour to you, but to the listener, it just looks like you're thinking carefully. It's better to pause, breathe, and then continue.
That's such a powerful tip. Silence can be your friend. Now, as we approach the end of this deep dive, Sarah, if you had to give just one golden rule for anyone who wants to reach the next level in the next 6 months, what would it be?
My golden rule would be make English a part of your identity. Don't let it be a chore or a task on your to-do list. Become the person who reads English news or the person who listens to English rock music. When the language becomes part of who you are and what you enjoy, you don't need discipline anymore because you're just living your life. What about you, Mark?
Mine would be focus on the message, not the mechanics. When you're speaking, don't think about the present perfect or the third person S. Think about the person in front of you. Think about the story you want to tell them. Language is a bridge between two souls. If you focus on the connection, the words will eventually find their way across.
That's beautiful, Mark. I think that's the perfect note to end on. To our listeners, we hope this long discussion has given you some fresh ideas and, more importantly, a boost of confidence. You are doing something amazing, learning a new way to see the world.
Keep pushing, keep practicing, and don't be too hard on yourself. The road to fluency is a marathon, not a sprint. We'll be right here with you every week on the Daily Breeze.
Until next time, stay curious and keep speaking.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye!